Welcome to Book Buzz Reviews and Summaries. Imagine this. You wake up in the early hours of the morning. The house is quiet, the only sound the soft hum of the coffee maker in the kitchen. Outside, the world is still draped in darkness, yet there's a light inside you, bright and undeniable, urging you to create. But before you can gather your thoughts, you hear it, the soft, familiar cry. The baby needs you. You can feel the creative spark flicker within you, but it's already being smothered by the practical demands of motherhood. Your dreams of writing, painting, or whatever creative project you've tucked away seem like distant memories, impossible to grasp amid the whirlwind of diapers, dishes, and endless to-do lists. And yet, even in the chaos of motherhood, something inside of you refuses to let go of that spark. There's a quiet voice urging you not to abandon your creativity. It's still there. You can still create. In Create Anyway, the joy of pursuing creativity in the margins of motherhood, Ashlee Gadd dives deep into this very tension, the beautiful, messy, and often frustrating dance between nurturing a family and nurturing your own creative soul. Through personal anecdotes, candid reflections, and the wisdom of women who have navigated this path before you, Gadd offers both practical advice and deep encouragement for mothers who long to create, but feel stifled by the endless demands of everyday life. She gets it. Gadd, a mother, writer, and creator herself, understands the internal struggle that so many women face, the pull between selflessness and self-expression. The pressure to give everything to your children and your family while desperately trying to hold on to a part of yourself. That spark inside you that refuses to be extinguished, even when you're juggling a million things at once. This book isn't about doing it all, because doing it all isn't possible. Instead, it's about finding the joy and fulfillment that comes when you learn to create anyway, even when the circumstances aren't perfect. It's about carving out space for creativity, no matter how small, in the margins of your busy life. And in doing so, it's about reconnecting with the essence of who you are, a creative being who deserves to honor and cultivate that side of herself, even if it looks different than it once did. As you read this book, imagine yourself stepping into a new narrative. One where creativity isn't a luxury, it's a lifeline. One where the mess of motherhood and the beauty of creativity can coexist, where the guilt of taking time for yourself fades and the joy of creating becomes part of your identity, not something that gets squeezed in between the cracks. Through her writing, Gadd asks, what if you didn't have to choose between motherhood and creativity? What if the two could enrich each other? What if, in the very act of creating, you could teach your children how to honor their own passions, how to see creativity as a part of life that deserves to be nurtured, not neglected? The truth is, the world will often tell you that motherhood and creativity are opposites. It will tell you that there's no time for both, that you have to choose one or the other. But Ashlee Gadd flips that narrative on its head. She reminds us that the creativity we cultivate in the margins can bring richness to our lives and those around us. The world doesn't need another supermom. It needs women who are unapologetically themselves, who follow their passions and honor their creative selves, even if it's messy, imperfect, and a little bit chaotic. Motherhood, after all, is never about perfection. It's about love, growth, and learning to embrace the beautiful mess of it all. And Create Anyway is an invitation to do just that, to embrace the mess, the imperfections, and the beauty of your creative journey. So, as you continue to read, imagine yourself leaning into that quiet, flickering spark. Picture yourself taking those stolen moments, whether it's a few minutes between feedings or an hour when the kids are asleep, and allowing that spark to grow. You don't have to wait for the perfect moment, because the perfect moment will never come. Instead, you can start right where you are in the midst of the chaos and create anyway. In these pages, you will discover 1. How to embrace the messiness of motherhood without losing sight of your creative vision. 2. Practical tools for carving out time to create, no matter how busy you are. 3. inspiration from other women who have learned to balance both their creative and maternal identities. 4. Tips on overcoming guilt and the pressure to do it all, allowing yourself the freedom to pursue your passions. 5. Stories of joy, resilience, and transformation that prove that creativity is not just for artists, it's for mothers too. Imagine, once again, the quiet of the morning. This time, you are holding a pen, a paintbrush, or a camera in your hands. You've carved out space for your creativity, and as you create, you feel the fulfillment of expressing yourself, of nurturing that part of you that deserves to be heard. You've allowed yourself to step into your own power, creating in the margins of motherhood. Part 1. The permission to create. Ashlee Gadd's exploration of the need for permission is layered with vulnerability and empowerment. She begins by addressing a common internal conflict, the tension between what mothers feel they should be doing and what their hearts are calling them toward. Society often portrays motherhood as an all-consuming role, where self-sacrifice is glorified. But Gadd flips this narrative, asserting that being a creative mother is not about choosing between art and family, it's about integrating the two. Gadd introduces the metaphor of hidden treasures, suggesting that each mother holds unique creative gifts that deserve to be uncovered and shared. These treasures, whether it's a knack for storytelling, painting, crafting, or singing, are not meant to be buried under piles of laundry or silenced by endless to-do lists. Instead, they are meant to be nurtured. Creativity, she writes, is a way of honoring these gifts, a way of living authentically. The author invites readers to reflect on their earliest creative memories. For her, it was writing short stories as a child and taking photographs in her teenage years. By revisiting these formative experiences, Gadd reconnects with the pure joy of creation, untainted by adult expectations or perfectionism. She encourages readers to do the same, suggesting that remembering our childhood passions can reignite our creative spark. One particularly moving story involves a day when Gadd's son asked her why she writes. Struck by the simplicity of his question, she found herself explaining that writing helps her feel alive. This conversation became a turning point, reminding her that her creativity is not something separate from her role as a mother, it's an integral part of who she is. By showing her children that she values her passions, she teaches them to value theirs. Gadd reassures readers that they are not alone in their struggles. She candidly shares moments when she doubted her right to create, times when she felt selfish for prioritizing a writing project over folding laundry or guilty for taking a quiet hour to herself while her husband handled bedtime. These stories are laced with honesty and humor, making them deeply relatable. To overcome these doubts, Gadd offers practical advice. 1. Start small. Begin with manageable goals, like dedicating just 10 minutes a day to your creative pursuit. 2. Redefine productivity. Progress doesn't have to mean finishing a novel or completing a gallery-worthy painting. It can be as simple as jotting down a new idea or experimenting with colors. 3. Find your why. Reflect on why your creativity matters to you. Whether it's for joy, self-expression, or connection, having a clear purpose can help you push past guilt and hesitation. Through gentle encouragement and heartfelt storytelling, Gadd gives mothers the permission they might not realize they need, permission to honor their creative impulses, even amidst the chaos of motherhood. Part 2. Embracing imperfection. In Create Anyway, Gadd debunks the myth that creative work requires perfect conditions. Instead, she paints a realistic picture of what it means to create in the middle of motherhood's beautiful mess. This section is both practical and deeply reassuring, reminding readers that their best work often emerges from imperfect moments. Gadd begins by recounting her early years as a mother creator when she constantly felt at odds with her environment. She longed for a pristine, sunlit workspace, a calm sanctuary where she could write uninterrupted. But her reality was far from this ideal. Her desk was cluttered with toys, her writing sessions were punctuated by cries from the baby monitor, and her thoughts were often scattered. Instead of succumbing to frustration, Gadd learned to embrace the chaos, finding beauty in the imperfections. A poignant story illustrates this shift. One evening, after her children went to bed, Gadd sat down to work on an essay she had been mulling over for weeks. The house was a mess, and her laptop battery was low, but she felt a rare surge of inspiration. As she typed, the words flowed more freely than they had in months. When she finished, she looked around at the cluttered room and thought, "This is enough." That essay, born in the middle of imperfection, became one of her most beloved pieces. The author also delves into the fear of failure that often paralyzes creatives. Many mothers hesitate to pursue their passions because they fear they won't measure up, whether to their own expectations or to others' standards. Gadd confronts this fear head-on, sharing her own experiences with rejection and self-doubt. She recounts the sting of an unkind comment on her blog and the anxiety of submitting her work to publishers. But instead of letting these moments define her, she used them as stepping stones to grow stronger and more resilient. Gadd emphasizes that the creative process itself is valuable, regardless of the outcome. She compares it to cooking a meal. Even if the dish doesn't turn out perfectly, the act of preparing it feeds your soul. Similarly, every creative effort, no matter how small or imperfect, adds richness to your life. Practical tips for embracing imperfection include: 1. Lower the bar. Set achievable expectations for yourself. For example, instead of writing a full chapter, aim to write 200 words. 2. Create without an audience. Not everything you make needs to be shared. Allow yourself the freedom to experiment privately. 3. Celebrate effort. Take pride in showing up, even if the results aren't what you hoped for. By sharing her own vulnerabilities and triumphs, Gadd shows readers that creating in the margins of motherhood isn't about perfection, it's about persistence and joy. Part 3. Creativity as Self-Care. Ashlee Gadd's exploration of creativity as self-care is deeply moving, rooted in her belief that nurturing one's passions is an act of love, not just for oneself, but for one's family. This section is a gentle yet powerful reminder that mothers cannot pour from an empty cup. Gadd begins by reflecting on a season of burnout in her life. With 2 young children, a growing workload, and a house to manage, she found herself constantly exhausted and emotionally depleted. Her creative pursuits, once a source of joy, had fallen by the wayside. "I didn't feel like myself anymore," she confesses. "It was as if a part of me had gone missing." She decided to prioritize creativity again, starting small. Writing became her refuge, a space where she could process her feelings and reconnect with her identity. Gadd describes how even brief moments of creativity, writing a single paragraph, taking a quick photo, or doodling in a notebook, began to restore her sense of self. This section also explores the therapeutic power of creativity. Gadd explains how the act of creating can serve as an emotional release, helping mothers process frustration, sadness, or anxiety. For her, photography became a way to find beauty in the mundane, while writing offered clarity during overwhelming days. She encourages readers to view their creative outlets not as chores, but as lifelines. A touching anecdote involves a day when Gadd's toddler threw a tantrum, leaving her feeling frazzled and helpless. Instead of stewing in frustration, she grabbed her camera and began photographing small details in her home: a vase of flowers, the light streaming through a window, her child's discarded shoes. This simple act shifted her perspective, helping her find gratitude in the midst of chaos. To make creativity more accessible, Gadd offers practical suggestions. Involve your children. Let them paint beside you, write stories together, or sing while you play an instrument. Creativity can become a shared experience. Protect your time. Whether it's waking up early or enlisting help from a partner, carve out moments for yourself. Start a ritual. Light a candle, play calming music, or set up a specific workspace to signal that it's time to create. By reframing creativity as self-care, Gadd helps readers see it as a necessity rather than a luxury. She reminds mothers that when they invest in themselves, they are better equipped to care for their families. Part 4. Finding joy in the margins. In this section, Ashlee Gadd brings her focus to the concept of the margins, those fleeting moments of time that often feel too small or insignificant for meaningful work. She encourages readers to rethink these pockets of time, viewing them as opportunities to cultivate joy and creativity. By reframing their perspective, mothers can begin to see their limited windows of free time not as barriers, but as gifts. Gadd begins by recounting her own experiences of creating in the margins. She talks about writing blog posts during nap times, sketching out ideas for a photography project while waiting in the carpool line, or brainstorming while folding laundry. While these moments were not ideal, they were enough. Over time, she discovered that small, consistent efforts could lead to meaningful progress. One particularly memorable story involves a season of life when Gadd's youngest child was teething, leaving her with little sleep and less energy. During this time, she began a photo day challenge, snapping one image daily to capture her life as it was. At first, it felt overwhelming to add another task to her plate, but as the days went by, the practice became a source of joy. Her photos were imperfect, sometimes blurry or poorly lit, but they told the story of her life authentically. When she compiled the images into an album, it became a cherished reminder of that season, imperfections and all. Gadd emphasizes the importance of adjusting expectations. A mother in a busy household might not have hours to spend on her craft, but she can still make the most of the time she has. She advocates for celebrating small wins, such as writing 100 words, finishing one sketch, or learning a new chord on the guitar. Over time, these small actions add up, creating a body of work that reflects dedication and passion. To help readers embrace creativity in the margins, Gadd provides actionable tips, micro-projects. Choose projects that can be broken into small, manageable tasks. Instead of writing an entire essay, focus on drafting a single paragraph. 1. Use transitions wisely. Waiting at the doctor's office? Use that time to jot down ideas or doodle. 2. Set realistic goals. Aim for progress, not perfection. Celebrate incremental achievements rather than waiting for a grand finish. 3. Keep tools accessible. Store notebooks, art supplies, or your camera in convenient places so you can dive into your craft whenever inspiration strikes. By celebrating the beauty of the margins, Gadd teaches mothers to embrace their reality instead of fighting against it. The joy of creation, she insists, is found not in perfect conditions, but in the willingness to start. Part 5. Community and connection through creativity. Gadd dedicates this part to exploring how creativity fosters connection, both within oneself and with others. She reflects on how sharing her creative work, whether through writing, photography, or conversation, has deepened her relationships and built a supportive community. Gadd begins by highlighting the vulnerability that comes with creating and sharing. Putting your work out into the world can be intimidating, especially in a culture that often equates worth with perfection. She recalls the first time she published a blog post, anxiously refreshing the page to see if anyone would read it. What surprised her was not just the response, but the connection it created. Readers reached out to thank her for articulating feelings they had struggled to put into words. Through this exchange, she realized that creativity has the power to bridge gaps and foster understanding. The author also shares how creativity has strengthened her friendships. She describes a close-knit group of fellow mother creators who meet regularly to encourage one another. Whether it's reading drafts, brainstorming ideas, or simply offering moral support, these relationships have been a source of inspiration and accountability. For Gadd, this community reminds her that she is not alone in her struggles or triumphs. A particularly touching anecdote involves a time when Gadd collaborated with her children on a family art project. Together, they painted a large canvas with colorful handprints, symbolizing their shared creativity. The project not only brought them closer but also served as a visual reminder of the joy that comes from working together. Gadd also addresses the importance of seeking out like-minded individuals, whether in person or online. Joining a writing group, attending an art workshop, or participating in a creative challenge can provide both motivation and camaraderie. She emphasizes that while motherhood can sometimes feel isolating, creativity can be a lifeline, connecting mothers to a larger community. To help readers foster connection through creativity, Gadd suggests: 1. Share your work. Whether it's posting a photo on social media or gifting a handmade item, sharing your creations can inspire others and build relationships. 2. Join or form a group. Find others who share your interests and create a space for collaboration and support. 3. Engage with your family. Involve your children or partner in creative activities, turning them into opportunities for bonding. Through this focus on connection, Gadd underscores that creativity is not just a solitary endeavor, it's a way to build bridges and cultivate meaningful relationships. Part 6. Leaving a legacy. In the final part of Create Anyway, Gadd reflects on the idea of legacy, the impact of a mother's creativity on her children, her family, and the world. She argues that every act of creation, no matter how small, leaves a mark that ripples outward. Gadd shares her own motivation for creating, to show her children that pursuing passions is a worthy and fulfilling endeavor. She recounts moments when her son watched her write or her daughter flipped through one of her photo books, asking questions about the images. These interactions reminded her that her creative efforts are not just for herself, they are for her family, too. The author also discusses the importance of modeling a balanced life. By prioritizing creativity, mothers teach their children the value of self-expression, resilience, and joy. Gadd believes that when children see their mothers pursuing passions, they learn to do the same, fostering a generational cycle of creativity. To illustrate this point, Gadd shares a story about her grandmother, who loved to quilt. Growing up, Gadd often watched her sew, fascinated by the colors and patterns. Decades later, those memories inspired her to pick up photography, another craft that involves an eye for detail and composition. For Gadd, this legacy of creativity is a testament to how the seeds we plant today can bloom in the future. Gadd ends the book with a heartfelt call to action: create anyway. Whether you feel too tired, too busy, or too unsure of your abilities, she urges readers to create despite the obstacles. By doing so, you not only honor your gifts but also leave a legacy of courage, joy, and authenticity. Read the book to learn more. If you are liking the series, please subscribe and press the like button. Thank you.